I'm talking about the assassination, because that's what it was, of this UnitedHealthcare CEO, Ben Thompson. And again, his wife called in NBC News. Guys, I'm not saying she's guilty. I'm just saying that's odd as all get out. And the truth of the matter is, whenever police officers are investigating a homicide, they question the family anyway. So I'm not saying she's guilty, not saying that at all. So I want to be emphatically clear on that. But I am saying it's odd. Okay? I don't know if she owns Bruno Molly's. That's all I'm saying. All right, so according to the NYPD, every indication is that this was a premeditated, pre-planned, targeted attack. And if you watch the video, which I was too coward to watch it all the way through, that's what I saw. I mean, I saw the first shot. The guy looks, checks himself. He's like checking his leg. So, and then he gets shot. I mean, it's just insane. I feel so bad for his family. I feel so bad for his kids, because that video is out there in the ether, even though you know how your father died, to be able to see it. And I'm sure they'll avoid it to the best of their ability. It just stinks. It just stinks. Now, I do have to bring this to your attention because it's part of the story, and it makes the story more intriguing. That first I told you, hat tip. Thank you, Alan Estrin, bringing that story to my attention. But you have these shell casings that have these the wordings on them. Again, it was like deny, depose, and unfortunately, because I can't get online, I can't see what the other D was, and I didn't have time to print out the story this morning. But that you have that intrigue. You have the wife calling in to NBC News. Now, everybody handles grief differently. I don't even know if you're in the grief stage that early on, but nonetheless, people handle grief differently. So I give her the benefit of the doubt, but it's just my opinion that that's uniquely odd to call into a news station when your husband has literally just been murdered within hours in an assassination attempt. So I'd like to hear more on that. And then there's this. Hat tip Breitbart, UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson was killed. Thank you. Deny, defend, and depose were the words that were etched on the shell casings, or written on the shell casings. Deny, what was it? Defend, depose. I mean, interesting. So, and this could be part of the plot. I don't know. This is just fascinating to me. All right, so hat tip Breitbart. Brian Thompson, again, that's the CEO that was murdered, gone down yesterday. Top executive had reportedly been under investigation by the DOJ for alleged insider trading and a monopoly. So multiple senior executives, according to UnitedHealthcare, have been under investigation by the DOJ, though it isn't clear if the CEO, Brian Thompson, was part of that investigation. That, according to Fox News, or Fox Business, excuse me. Quote, there were reports that the executives were accused of insider trading and fraud, and last year the DOJ launched a probe into whether the nation's largest insurer was unfairly restricting competitors and running a monopoly, close quote. Lawsuits were filed by the DOJ in conjunction with attorneys general from Maryland, Illinois, New Jersey, and New York to block the $3.3 billion acquisition of its rival hospice provider. I've never even heard of this. Amedisys, AMEDISYS, don't know how to pronounce that. That would have eliminated their competition. So Attorney General Merrick Garland said last month that the merger could harm vulnerable patients. Now, Attorney General Merrick Garland sucks, and I know we all know that. By the way, I'll get into more deep state stuff. Joe Biden, there's talks of Joe Biden pardoning even more people that were involved in the prosecution of Trump. And they say it's because they fear that Trump is going to target them. That's an absolute, utter lie. We'll get into that as well. It's because they're probably criminals that are hiding dirt. We'll get into some details. Of that. All right. But whatever you think about Merrick Garland, and actually, if you're listening to Dennis Prager, I probably know. But he appears to argue, in my opinion, correctly here. He says, quote, "We are challenging this merger because home health and hospice patients and their families experiencing some of the most difficult moments of their lives deserve affordable, high-quality care options. The Justice Department will not hesitate to check unlawful consolidation and monopolization in the healthcare market that threatens to harm vulnerable patients, their families, and healthcare workers," close quote. Now, admittedly, that doesn't apply to the biggest takeover of healthcare and healthcare insurance in American history, Obamacare. But nonetheless, I digress. Americans, he goes on, American healthcare is unwell. Unless this $3.3 billion transaction is stopped, United Health Group will further extend its grip to home health and hospice care, threatening seniors, their families, and nurses. All right, so the company also experienced a major hacking scandal earlier this year that you might recall. All right, the NYPD characterized the killing of Thompson, again, as a brazen targeted attack, which I've already mentioned. The attacker fired more than once, striking Thompson more than once, and was able to clear jams in the gun as he was using the firearm. A lot of people say, man, this guy must have tons of experience to do that. That's not necessarily true. We'll talk about that next. A lot of people are saying apparently it was a makeshift firearm. And a lot of people are saying this guy had to have a lot of expertise in firearms. Guys, that is such a – I almost think that's a – I almost feel like that's an argument for the left or from the left that the left has used in order for you to believe that firing a gun is or to get proficient at firing a firearm is I mean, it will take years. It's just not true. If I'm being blunt, and I usually am. So if I'm being blunt, I have a couple of buddies that worked for a couple of different sheriff offices, and I won't say which, but both of those people, actually three, one more of an acquaintance, but worked for different sheriff offices, and all three of them at different times told me, sadly, how a lot of the police officers around them are not that great. I hate saying this, but they said it, and I think we've seen it at times, are not that great with firearms. I mean, they're not bad, don't get me wrong, they're not bad, but it's not like they use them daily. They get ammo to be able to practice. I can't recall how often it is where they can practice, but frankly, you can go to a gun range and practice just as much as a police officer. If you know somebody with land or property, you can go with a rifle, and you can practice, and you can become as proficient as a law enforcement officer. I used to watch this show. I don't know if it's still on the air or not, where literally it would be everyday guys. It would be law enforcement officers, former, FBI or whatever it may have been, farmers, competing in their skills when it comes to shooting handguns, firearms, and literally almost every single show it would be this farmer or a rancher or something like that dealt with firearms all the time that would beat out law enforcement, including snipers. I saw this one where, and I don't recall the name of the show, and it was really close, but at the end, the farmer beat the sniper. I mean, it was really close. It wasn't like it was a devastating defeat. It was just like off by millimeters or something like that. It was insane. All right, so you can go practice. You can get proficient in firearms. You find a firearm that's comfortable. You find somebody at a range or a friend that knows how to deal with firearms. And by the time you walk out of a gun range, I guarantee you can feel pretty comfortable with a firearm. And that may be the case. I don't know, but that may be the case here. But even when it comes to a jam, if this is a makeshift firearm that this gentleman had, he may have tried it wherever he was, and then he probably dealt with that situation before. And all you do is you saw how calm he was. You stay calm, you breathe, you slide the rack, you get that jammed, that jammed round out, slide it back, ready to go. It's weird to me that these guys are trying to make it sound like it's so complicated. It's not like I'm some genius when it comes to firearms. I'm not a Seb Gorka. If you ever hear Seb Gorka's show, I mean, the guy knows firearms like the back of his hand. And so I'm not that, but I do have enough firearms, and I have shot enough to realize it ain't that hard. All right. So anyway, I just wanted to run that by you. And also, my buddy Dennis from the American Adversary sent this. This is where this gentleman, I don't know if it was from this movie or from a book. I wasn't able to get online earlier. I can now, but I want to share this. But Dennis writes, John Q is a 2002, I remember that film, American thriller film about a father who takes a hospital emergency room hostage to save his son's life. So John Quincy Archibald, played by Denzel, is a struggling factory worker whose son Michael collapses during a baseball game due to heart failure. John discovers that his insurance won't cover the cost of a transplant for Michael, and he's unable to raise the required deposit. John takes the hospital's emergency room hostage, threatening to kill hostages until his son is put on the transplant list. The standoff becomes a national media circus, and John becomes a hero to many. The movie is a fight for Mike's life, and some say it's an indictment of the barriers to life-saving healthcare in the United States. Now, anyway, I think that's interesting. It may have been from a book. I can finally get online, so I'll go back and check some of this stuff. My laptop was freezing here, but it's up and running now. But all of that to say, this story is just so intriguing because it really is a story of whodunit. I could imagine, and again, I'm not subscribing any guilt to anyone, but I could imagine a family member playing a part in this and trying to make it look like it was a hit job. I can imagine somebody that was really upset about the healthcare industry that just wanted to get back at the guy. This story, I mean, this is a real whodunit.